Welcome back to Advanced Java. In this video, I want to show you where to find the source code for the unit tests that you're writing code to pass in both the labs and in the project, and walk through one of those tests that you're pretty familiar with from the lab, so that you can kind of apply that same knowledge to other unit tests that you look at. So why is this helpful? Well, sometimes you're working through the tests and you hit a test that maybe you're having trouble passing and you're not exactly sure what that test is looking for. And so looking at the source code for that test will help you understand what the test is doing. So I kind of glossed over this here. The unit tests are in a repository within our course GitHub organization called Unit Test Source Code. And so that should be visible to you as long as you've sent me your GitHub user and I've added you in so that you have read access to this. So if you don't have access, please let me know. And then here there are test classes, or classes with the tests in them for each of the various classes that you'll be writing, whether it's a project or in the labs. So let's take a look at the Lab 2 mystery class test. I want to preface this by saying I'm not expecting that by looking at this that you become an expert in JUnit. We won't be writing JUnit tests this semester, but you will be doing that if or when you take Enterprise Java. So there's a bunch of import statements here. Ultimately, this is bringing in some of the JUnit classes that you need, and it also imports Java 112 labs 1.mystery class 1, and that's the class that you're writing. So this test class, or this class for the unit tests, has to be able to access your class. So because these are sitting in different packages, these classes, this test class and your class, this test only has the ability to see public classes, of course, and then public methods in your application. So you may find some methods that we're asking you in the project to be public, and you might wonder, well, I really don't have to have that as public. In this case, some of those are public so that we can test them. In the real world, you'll have your unit tests right within the same project, and then that problem kind of goes away. So there's something unique about the way that we're doing this unit testing this semester that means you have to have some public methods on your classes that in some cases you may not even use within your project, or that you might find the scope to be a bit different than what you might have chosen. All right, so here we've got the class. The class is initially has a bit of setup. So what's the setup? Well, it's going to try to instantiate your class. So you might remember that there were some failures if that class wasn't found. For example, we had a class def not found error. After your test runs, or the tests run, then there's some cleanup that happens, which is basically just releasing that class for garbage collection. Here's the class exists test. Assert not null, so make sure that the mystery class isn't null and that variable was assigned to an object here. So a little bit of duplication, because if the class doesn't actually exist, we probably would see an error here as well. So you might have two failed tests kind of for the same problem. Method 1 return test. So remember that there was a test in there that was testing to make sure that there was a method that returned an int. And so this is the test that's responsible for that. So here it's trying to get the method, mystery method 1, off of the class, and then verifying that there's a return type on there of an int. And if that's not true, that's where we'll see the failure. So that's kind of how you read through these. One more, method 1 exists. So remember, I think this might have been one of the first tests that failed and that we passed. Same thing, that this test will essentially get the method, mystery method 1, off of the class. And if it is null, if it didn't exist, then we're going to have a message in our test output that says, hey, you need to have this mystery method 1 method. Last one here, checking what the result is. So this bit of code here is actually executing the method in our class. and then checking what the result is. If it's not 1, then we see the message about the value needing to be 1. So hopefully that gives you a bit of insight into how to understand what the tests are doing. Remember that you can match up from the test output in the text file the name of the method being run as the test case, and then you can come into that particular class here and take a look at what's happening, what is the code doing. If you run into something in one of these unit tests that doesn't make sense to you, please ask. There's occasionally some fancier stuff going on here than what might be obvious or that we've seen before. So don't be afraid to ask questions if there's something here that you don't understand or you're curious about. All right, I hope that helps. We'll see you next time.